Right, good morning. And this morning our guest is, last week we had a retired international back row forward, and this week we've got a young up-and-coming one. I don't know if you'll reach the British Lions, Tommy, but we'll what we keep on doing on here, Tommy, so to introduce you, is every week we keep talking about how this is affecting young people, how it affect people in college, how it affect those still playing, and what you've got is a bunch of sort of old people talking about how it's affecting the young people and so on. So we thought it'd be a good idea
how our day was better.
Yeah. Our day we were better. So what we thought is we'll have someone on who is of that age that it is really affecting their playing and your university and stuff like that. But I know before we start that you're not new to the world of film or TV or anything like this, because you were at one point a reality TV star, weren't you, in Korea?
Yeah, I get a bit of stick for that still. Yeah, BBC school swap career style it was. Yeah, it was. Looking back on it now, very very interesting. I had a terrible haircut as well. Still got one now, but there we are.
All I remember with that programme is that you definitely one of the characters there, and you had a problem. I'm surprised to see you so early, because you had a problem in staying awake, didn't you, in the classes?
Yeah, no, it was towards the end. It was getting quite tough because they wake up at like 6 a.m. But there was one morning where I swear I put my alarm on, but it didn't work, and then I made them late, and it was very awkward. It was very awkward at the start, just trying to get to know these people that you've never met before. And then I'd made him late to school, and he's never been late in 6 or so years. So yeah, that was great.
I was going to say, what, those crazy people get up at 6 a.m. Oh my God!
I know, yeah. That's not for. It's not for me, Finn. I won't lie.
Hey, I've been up and done a bike ride already this morning.
Yeah. I've only been up half an hour. I've had my crunch.
That's a good achievement, though, to be able to go to Korea and impose a bit of St. David's culture on them.
Exactly. I've taught them something, if anything.
No.
Yeah.
So Tommy, how is lockdown treating you? And because obviously you're at home from university.
Yeah, yeah.
So what's been happening? How have you been getting by?
Well, it's a bit strange. I mean, in terms of just the uni work, the only thing that we've really had in terms of help is this safety net. So basically, we can't go below a certain grade, and they have a whole algorithm for it or whatever. But apart from that, it's been exactly the same. We've had these lectures online and everything, but they're just not the same. Trying to talk to people, the lecturers that you're seeing is very difficult now, because before you could go see them, but even before the pandemic, I had 6 weeks of strikes, so it's been really strange, and we're still expected to do all the work without any hesitation. So yeah, really weird, really strange.
What were the strikes for?
What about?
Yeah, it was industrial action. They had 6 weeks of industrial action, which is, I mean, fair enough, but again, we're still paying for tuition, even though we're not in and not doing any work. So yeah, it's been really, the last part of the second year has been tough. It's been really tough.
And what about the frustrations of some of your age, Tom? Because obviously, in some ways, for people like me and Finton, it's almost easier. Finton's got a company he's got to keep trying to promote and run from home. I've got 2 little ones. I'm trying to combine working from home and homeschooling them. So, okay, it brings its challenges, but your time is occupied. Now, you've got your uni work, but you are of that age where you like to be socialising, meeting mates, going out for bike rides, to the gym with your friends. How are you coping with the frustrations of that?
Oh, it is tough, and I think everyone in my year will agree it is really tough, because obviously you're coming into the last part of the year, you've got your exams and whatever, but then you're meant to have the whole of June, to do what you want, really. But stuff like with the rugby season was about to end. We had varsity as well. Swansea Cardiff, biggest day of the year, didn't happen.
That's right, yeah.
So, we still are lucky with everything we got and everything, but it's just, it was a bit tough just in terms of the socialization aspect of it, really, yeah.
So
it was strange.
you're obviously second year student in uni. You're up in Cardiff. What are you? What are you reading? I was going to say studying, but
Yeah, not much reading going on. Journalism and communications in the Joe Meck School. Yeah, so it's the building's right next to the stadium, the Principality.
So you're going to do to Fraser what he did to Bill Kahn, then, yeah?
Yeah, I'm going to usurp him. Yeah.
He's got to work with you, Fraser, isn't he, on work experience? Tommy, is he?
We'll come on to that later.
Yeah.
He has, yeah. We had a good week, actually. I mean, that nearly didn't happen, actually. This was long before the world of COVID-19. That was on the back of I think it was Storm Dennis, or whenever Wales were, I get them more mixed up. Dennis, George, the lot. So that was only actually a mere couple of weeks before the whole COVID-19 pandemic really took a grip on the UK. So yeah, it's been an up and down year, and that between your strikes, Tom, you've had a pretty disrupted year in university.
I have, yeah.
In my day, you went to a couple of lectures. You went out 6 nights out of 7, and there weren't really many other complications apart from that. You know,
yeah,
all by yourself.
yeah. So it is really strange, but I mean, going on to what you were saying about, you know, going 6 days a week. It's just from first year having that normality of, you know, and I was expecting that for second year. Had all these things planned out, and then just for it to come crashing down, it's so strange.
Do you obviously
you mentioned the rugby there? Oh, go on, Finn.
No, yeah, I was just going to say with the college work, uni work, are you being disciplined? Like, are you getting yourself up at a certain time in the morning and doing the work, or are you finding that motivation really hard? Like, because I speak to so many people who've got, kids the same age, young adults, and that the motivation is hard, and staying in bed and stuff like that. So, how are you coping with all of that?
Yeah, it's exactly the same for me. I've seen, because I'm on Twitter and everything, and all I see from people my age is saying, how comes we're getting forgotten and everything? And obviously we've got lectures at certain times and everything, but to be honest, I've not been to many. And that's purely based on my own motivation. And I know all of my friends are the same, just because it in a way, it doesn't really feel like we're at uni anymore. It just feels like we're doing the work, and that's because uni it's like a social area of ideas and people talking together to get different ideas and whatever. But so it doesn't actually feel like we're in uni, and as you say, getting that discipline and that motivation is very difficult.
Yeah. Yeah, go on, Fraser.
I was going to say, well, I was actually going to come to the rugby one, but I will make this point first. I think that's where I do feel sorry for students at the moment. I think, it's all well and saying that we're putting things in place so they can carry on with their studies and get their degree, but you're missing out on the social aspect and the life skills that university teaches you. And well, you'll know that as well as I do, Finn. It can teach you some harsh lessons as well, but in a lot, don't you? You grow up in a lot of ways in university, and that's what they're missing out on at the moment, the interactive side of things. And that's where I really do feel for them, But going back to the rugby side of things, sorry, Tommy, you mentioned varsity, big university day being scrapped. I don't want to go on about playing in it myself because it's not about me, but your own rugby career. Your own rugby career season has been curtailed as well. How much is that hurting you? Forward to getting back to playing, and are you being fit to play in the meantime?
Yeah, well, the start of this season, I was finding it a bit tough to get into a team because there's so many boys. There was so many boys training. There was about 150 training for 2 teams.
It's a competitive environment now, uni rugby. Yeah,
it is. But now they've got an extra team now, so it should be a bit easier next year. I mean, this season I broke my collarbone, so I was out for four months. So I didn't really have any time training anyway. So I kind of said, I'll scrap this season. So it wasn't too much of a bad thing for me. Obviously, the boys that I'm in uni with are gutted, like they're really gutted. End of year is the best time, sun's shining, because they've already been playing through the winter and terrible weather, and the season being scrapped has been obviously a bit devastating, but it's just one of the things, isn't it? one of those things that comes with the pandemic. And all the boys are still training and everything. So, yeah, what can you do?
How did you find that, Tommy? Because, when you were obviously playing for St. David's, in the team that I coached all the way through, and, when you were playing for us, you were one of our star players, probably the best rugby player in the team. You went off, you and a few other boys went off to the Scarlets as well, Scarlets West and all of that. And it came easy to you, but then when you go to uni, and you suddenly realise that there's two teams, there's 150 boys, and and you're just another name and another face. And have you personally, or do you say, have you got the motivation then to think, right, I need to knuckle down, I need to train hard, and then I'll prove myself and get into the team? Or is it easy just to sort of think, oh well, I haven't got the motivation to do that, so that's the end of your rugby career, really?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Because in a way, that in the uni, they've obviously got the Super Rugby. That's the top of university rugby in the UK, and then they got the second team who are in the league below, and then they got the third team who are in quite a few big jump down. So it's kind of like, how hard do you want to train? If you want to train really hard and be really dedicated, and you can't go out as much, you play for those top two teams. But for me, I didn't really want that. So I've kind of not trained as hard, going for the third, fourth, fifth team kind of thing. And it's just how it happened. And as you said, some boys are asked to come to the uni and asked to do pre-season for the first and second team. So it's kind of not out of the question, but it's very hard to get in that top echelon of teams. So yeah, it's very competitive. It's definitely the most competitive thing I've played in, apart from Pembrokeshire under 15s, but we won't go there.
Yeah, because I was. It is when you get to uni and you realise that you go and train and then you're thinking, there's boys there who saying, oh yeah, I played for, Gloucestershire, under 18s, or I was English schoolboys cap, or I was Wales school. Everyone's got a sort of a representative title behind them, ain't they? Or, and you think, all right, I played for St. David's,
Yeah. Well, one thing I remember from the the first trial that I went to was, obviously there were a lot of boys that went to public school. So they used to play against each other, and everyone knew everyone. They knew what school you went to. Obviously not me, because in Wales it's different. School rugby is not as big as it is in England. But all the English boys that went to school or public school, they knew each other because they all travelled down and played each other. So that was different. They all knew each other from the start, most of them. And that, for boys in Wales, you have to kind of, which is weird. In a uni in Wales, you'd think it would be different, but no, it was like that at the trials. And it was a strange environment.
Yeah, I just want to touch on something before I hand over to Fraser. The other night, now you were on Zoom with Harvey, obviously, and you were telling me to be quiet because you were trying to have a party, you have a few beers, but also you'd said that I'd coached you since you were 4, and I taught you how to lose.
Taught me how to lose. Did I say that?
You did.
Oh dear.
What did you mean by that? Now, I think you were saying that when you were younger, you were. I know what you mean. You were really competitive.
I wouldn't say competitive. I was a little stroppy-assed kid. That's what I was. I told Harvey that as well. I was I wasn't a good loser. But when I remember, I think it was the under 15 season, and you were talking to me about being captain, and you said, look, stroppy shit ends now. And basically that pretty much put me in my place and said, actually, I've got to stop being like that. And it has helped me, to be fair. But when I was younger, I remember I didn't get, it must have been something like under 8s, under 9s. And I didn't get player of the year, and I cried because I was such a sore loser. Awful. Absolutely awful. Yeah. There we are. I've moved on now. Moved on.
That was Colin telling me not to give it to you. Said, don't give it to Tommy.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I'd do the same thing.
Yeah. All right, I'll just pass you over to Fraser there now.
Tommy, what's the feeling amongst your age group and maybe your generation to talk about it a bit more broadly about the return of rugby, because we're going to come on to this now shortly, the participation, the drop-off numbers and that sort of things. Is there a feeling that everyone's really keen to get back to it and everyone's missing it? Or is everyone missing the social interaction more? Is it the game they're missing or their mates?
Do you mean the club or university? Because
at both levels.
Oh, okay. No, I mean, most people around, but the boys that do play, yeah, they're buzzing to get back. Especially uni and club as well. I know the boys that we've got a new team now in St David's, looking to get ready for next season now, because it's not going to be this season. So yeah, they're buzzing to get back, it seems. So that's the general consensus, and the boys are training hard. I see it on their Snapchat stories and whatever. They're training hard and all that. So yeah, really buzzing.
Because I mean, yeah. Well, so
I think you'd say, Fint, maybe you better to come in here on the drop-off numbers, because you've coached Tommy and at the level to talk about, aren't you?
I was just going to say with the the boys are training, like when we had last week, Ryan Jones on last week, and he was talking about at the top level that with the contact and stuff like that you're going to need a period to get back in, to get these guys back in shape as such. But even at the lower levels, Division 3, Division 2, some big guys there playing that game now, like in powerful people. It's you're going to need a good pre-season, I think, to get everyone back. It's not just a case of saying, let's get back, and play next week. It's we need like a month of pre-season where we're hitting pads and doing a bit of contact in training. Yeah,
you couldn't say, oh, this Saturday we're playing, you've got a game, boys. You couldn't do it because we're training. Yeah. You got to get back into that contact mindset and all that. And it takes some time, I know, because after summer you're kind of a bit groggy and everything hurts again. You get back into that. You get back into that feeling as well. Yeah.
Well, just going on there. So you mentioned about the drop-off rates, right? I mean, you look at yourself now, and it's and our sort of the team that we had in St David's there, that it came through from under 7s all the way through to under 16s. At under 16s, things were getting difficult to get a side all the time. We managed to see the season out. First year of youth, then when you think that you're joining with 2 other age groups, it just didn't happen. No. We didn't have the numbers there. And boys sort of, drift away from it, and, we look at it, but you speak to, as a coach now and, a parent, you speak to people at other clubs and other parents, and it's mirrored across Wales. So it wasn't just like a problem with us. No. But, do you have any views on that? Why boys, and we're talking boys who are keen as anything and love their rugby, and, and out of that side that we had, was it 3 of you have played for the first. Jack had, doesn't play much at all, like, now. You're away in uni and, but play when you're home, and then Harvey plays, like, and that was about it. That's about it, yeah. So, why, what do you think, if you look back as, when boys drop out and why, people go away from it? Do you have any views on that?
It's a strange one. That's what the whole thing about that period. At one point in under 16s, we had about 23 boys, didn't we? And it just slowly went down, and I think we all felt a bit confused as to why it was happening. And maybe it's because, in a way, maybe those boys that were playing weren't actually fully enjoying it, and maybe they were just playing to be part of their mates and whatnot. I know that the case to be for some of my mates. But yeah, it was a really strange one, that the fact that everyone just kind of fizzled out, and then when it got to youth, it was absolutely no one really that really wanted to take control and say, actually, let's get a team together. 3 year groups it is, 3 year groups, to get 15 boys together, and we just couldn't do it, and it was really strange, and it definitely peeved me off a little bit. I remember back in the day, it used to really annoy me, but yes, it's odd, and I think maybe the reason being that the boys just weren't really enjoying rugby anymore, or weren't at the level of other, because there were some good youth teams, obviously. We played Fishguard that first game and we lost 40-0. I remember that to this day. But there were other really good teams, and maybe the boys just didn't feel like improving or training or anything. It was really peculiar.
Is it a winning or losing thing? I'm going to aim this question at both of you because, this a particular period you're talking about now rankled with me because I was back at St David's as a senior player by then. I was actively involved in trying to encourage youth boys to come training with the first team, especially the fitness training side of things, just to keep them involved with a view to using them when they were 18, and a lot of them would drop off, and it angered me. It angered me because the first team and the committee almost got that problem got pinned on us in that we weren't doing enough to encourage and help youth boys to come through. And I didn't see it like that. There was enough numbers and there was a basis there to have a youth team, but you can't, you can drag a horse to water, can't make it drink, so to speak. At the end of the day, they've got to want to turn up, and I got the feeling a lot of them didn't. And I'd speak to a few of them, and as so often the case, if you send them a Facebook message or whatever, and they message you back and they sound keen, and then next thing you know, they don't want to play rugby because they're going to go and play football for Solver Seconds. Now, I don't want this to come out wrong. I don't begrudge that. When I was younger, I flipped back between football and rugby myself, but it was perhaps the lack of honesty maybe frustrated me. And also, these were boys, you can't blame boys whose preference is football, but these were boys who, to my knowledge, were non-footballers, but they were going to play for Solver Seconds, who at the time I think were a Division 4 side maybe, who were going to be competitive maybe every week and win or lose the odd game, as opposed to playing a sport they're good at. And I won't mention names, but they've got a very talented rugby boys in this group I'm mentioning now, are good at, where they're worried about losing every week. Have I made sense?
Yeah, maybe they didn't. It's kind of like, they're in that winning. They're in that losing mindset. St David's now I'm on about. There's that losing mindset, and they were losing most weeks. But then there was no desire to go to training and improve. It was just like, I want to join a team that's winning. Hence why a lot of boys went to join Narberth in a way, and that's happened for years. Narberth and other clubs, bigger clubs.
At youth level.
Yeah, youth level or afterwards as well. Go to play for their seconds or whatever, and that's happened for years now. That's happened since my brother was in youth. So yeah, I think it's the desire to change that culture of either winning or losing, and if they don't want to change it, then they go play football.
Finn, do you think the other things have come into it here? Like, though, when we were growing up, the travelling wasn't a problem. You enjoyed an away day on the bus, didn't you? The social side of it. You weren't so worried necessarily about money or missing work and things. Now you've got youngsters. This is where I think rugby's at a big disadvantage. And they might have regionalised the leagues, but let's be honest, that 3 Division West A now, it resembles pretty much a West Wales league again. Half the teams in it aren't even in Pembrokeshire, So you're looking at it, maybe as a young boy coming through who's a bit unsure whether he want to play rugby or not. You've got St David's, a side who are bottom of the league, who have won, a handful of games at best in the last 4 or 5 years, league games anyway. You're looking at the travelling involved. You're looking at the slogs. You're going to far away to places just to get hammered. You can play, but on the contrary, you can play football, cricket, or maybe do another sport where you're going to be competitive most weeks. It doesn't matter about the level. It's all based within Pembrokeshire. You're not travelling far. You can leave your house at 1 o'clock and be back in it by 5 if so needs be. Do you think that all comes into it as well?
Definitely. But if you go back to what Tommy said there as well, when we were talking about the youngsters coming through and 16, 17, and I could see it as a coach that there was boys in that side who didn't really enjoy the game as such. Yes, they want to be there with their mates and they want to be part of it, but when you're looking at it and then boys start getting big, like they were big lumps at 16, there was some really big boys there, and what you're looking at, some of those boys are training, they're starting to hit the gym, they're starting to do extra training, and they've got that natural size. And then you've got others who are there, and and I remember saying, I remember 1 or 2 of them wouldn't come some weeks or would turn up, and then I remember just sort of saying, look, if they don't want to be there, it's not safe for them to be there. There's no point in trying to put someone on the pitch who doesn't want to be there. So I can understand that's the natural sort of drop off rate as well at kids. They've done it. but it's just not for them at senior level, like, you know, or youth level. As for the winning, it's always been that as well. Like, you know, again, Tommy touched on saying boys have always gone. I mean, when I've come into St David's side, everyone talks about, you know, when you come in, oh yeah, back in the day we were great and whatever. We had some massive hidings. First year of the Pembrokeshire League, the National Leagues, you know, there was so many mismatches there. You know, it was hard, but you know, and then you would get one or two players who said, "Look, I want to be competitive, I want to win," and they would go to another club, and whether that be, you know, to Haverfordwest, whether it be to Fishguard, whether it be to you know, Narberth, it depends how good they are, really. And boys who wanted to win would go and do that, or they wanted to be competitive. For me, you know, I enjoyed the away trips, you know, getting on the bus and going up there, playing. You play the game, you try your hardest, and you turn up for training and you enjoy the social side of it. You know, and that's what it was about. And then every now and again, you'd have a good run. You know, the second year, I think, of the National Leagues, we had a really good run. You know, and boys started training and things went well because they evened the leagues out a bit. But it's, you know, for a lot of clubs, it's just that up and down of who you've got at the time. So, yeah, there is competitiveness, and there is, you know, people. You know, I've spoken to someone who left St David's probably last season or season before, you know, and they just wanted, you know, they just wanted to play in a side where they felt that were competitive all the time, and that was their nature. And you know, you can't begrudge that. You know, it's a difficult one, really, isn't it? You know, I don't know what the answer is. You know, it's easy. You know, it's easy to blame the club and to blame this and to blame that. There's always more organisations can do, but also as well, a lot of it's down to the players have got to step up and have got to turn up to training, haven't they? And they've got to be honest with themselves, like, you know. And you can't expect, you know, I know what you're talking about, Fraser. You know, this sort of period there, you can't expect not to be around for 4 weeks and then to turn up and to walk straight back into a team.
Yeah.
You know, that you know, even if you are better than the player that's on the pitch, if that player's played the last 4 weeks and has travelled all the way up the line, you know, to, you know, bloody Pontiates, you know, Llanybydder, wherever you've got to go, Tregaron, they've done those trips, and then you've got a game at home that you could possibly win. You can't drop that player.
No, it's
you
a
know?
fair point.
And, you know, and I've been a coach, and I have, you know, dropped players for people who've come in, and, you know, and I really regret it. You know, when I look back at some of the things you regret, you think, you know, I shouldn't have done that. And I've had it done to me.
I did as captain, and I, you know, that year we ultimately had a successful year, 11 league wins. But I look back at some of the things on what you touched upon, the decisions I made, and I think, did I just get lost in the fact that we were heading towards this good winning record, that an under captain, deep down, I wanted it, you know, I wanted that on my record, so to speak. And I made the more successful we got, almost the more cynical I became, and the more ruthless I became. And I look in hindsight now and think some of the selections that, it wasn't all me, obviously the coaches in place at the time, but some of the selection, I think, was I a bit short-sighted there? You know, was I just thinking of, right, we've got a chance to have a successful season here, let's do it, as opposed to the long-term thinking and looking after the boys who are going to be there long-term. So yeah, it's interesting you say that. Tommy, another thing I wanted to touch on with you now, obviously, the physicality in rugby is so much bigger now. The emphasis on weight, strength, conditioning amongst youngsters is so much more. And that perhaps is what Finton's talking about as well. It's dangerous now to people who go into rugby half-hearted, because even at the lowest level, you're talking people who are lifting big weights in the gym, you're talking big boys, and you can get hit a lot easier. What's the emphasis like for someone of your age on weights?
If you don't go to the gym, you're pretty much dead weight, if you pardon the pun. Yeah, I mean, it started for me with Scarlet's West. He was 16 years old. Well, no, 15, 16 years old. We had Strength Academy Wales. They were brilliant. They taught us
So you went into the Scarlets West setup at 15, is that right?
Yeah, 15. Yeah, 15 to 16. That age group
Right.
it was.
Okay.
And then so it started with that, and we went to Strength Academy Wales in Haverford, who were brilliant. They taught us Olympic lifting. But like, say with that, if you didn't go to the gym at 7 o'clock in the morning, you pretty much got in trouble, and you didn't really get into any chance of getting into the squad or whatever. So it starts from there, and then from there up, I'd say from 16 upwards, if you have to be going to the gym and training, otherwise there's no way that you're going to get into those higher squads. And I haven't been training as hard as I could, and that's because maybe I don't know, I've become a bit lethargic. But some of the boys I know, they've trained really hard, and they've become really good rugby players because of it. So I think the emphasis on training at university level as well is massive. And they train 4 or 5 times a week, maybe even more in their own time. But I know with the squads, they do about 3 or 4 with their teams. So, yeah.
And that's gym work. You're talking gym work 3 or 4 times a week?
Well, no, they do it with their own groups, yeah. But they at the moment, I know the first team, they've got their own Strava, and they have to do a certain amount of running not every day, but they do it in a week or whatever. Because one of my mates is he's in the team, and he says they got a running club at the moment. And then when it is normal season, they'll do gym at 8 a.m. or whatever. And that's sometimes after a night out, so they tend to complain. But they're training hard.
Are there certain requirements and levels they've got to hit on their weight? Are they trusted to go to the gym and do their own sessions, or have they got to be hitting certain levels?
No, it from what I can see. Obviously, I haven't experienced that, but from what I can see, it's quite serious. And they're given meal plans and like how to lose weight. Or how to, they've got their own nutrition or exercise coach, and they're given their own plans to either gain weight or become more muscular or lose weight. And they base that basically on whether you're going to get in the squad or not. And that is pretty serious based on what I've heard. So, yeah.
When you were back in, obviously looking at 15, 16 at Scarlets West, then were you given targets to meet then, or was it just a case of were they showing you how to do it properly? Like, I know Strength Academy Wales is really good. Simon is excellent there at getting,
brilliant.
And you need that technique. Just to learn that technique will set you up for life for lots of training that you do whatever sport. But were they giving you targets you had to meet, fitness targets or weight targets?
No, they didn't do anything like that, and that's why I thought it was good. It was they would teach you the technique. The technique was obviously the most important thing because they didn't want you getting hurt. But no, there was never any pressure to do enough weight or anything like that. I thought it was really good, and it taught you discipline to get up really early in the morning and get going, which was tough as a 16-year-old. But yeah, it was really good, and they didn't set any goals like that. No.
I mean, that's good. I mean, one of the things with the, going back to the 15s, 16s and the drop out there, I mean, with that Scarlets West, we had, I think, 5 or 6 boys maybe involved in that setup from St. David's, which is good, when you think, it's good for the boys in there. But when everyone was released from there or they came back, they seemed to me, the vast majority, perhaps bar one of them, had lost their interest in rugby. It seemed to me like it was a case of you hadn't made it, or you'd been released. Instead of being proud that you'd represent the Scarlets West or Pembrokeshire, and that that's something to be proud of, it almost like 1 or 2 of them felt that they'd been rejected because they hadn't made it, and it's sort of a detrimental effect. I don't know.
It goes back. It goes back to, for me, it goes back to that perseverance thing, and whether you want to be good enough or you want to keep training or keep playing. And sometimes the rejection, maybe it's a bit harsh. I didn't get through to the Scarlets, I was gutted, but I just went back to St. David's and kept playing. But yeah, as you say, some boys just lose interest. And again, I couldn't tell you why, but it just seems to be they can't persevere with it, and maybe that's the reason why. But yeah, strange.
For me there, guys, the problem is in the name. And you might both agree or disagree on this. To call for Pembrokeshire, should be a prestigious thing. It should be a difficult setup to get into. If you're good enough to impress for Pembrokeshire, then you go on to a higher level where it's called Scarlets and so on. To call it Scarlets West or Scarlets East for me just gives a false impression to youngsters. And I'm going somewhere with this now. I think if you're a school kid or a pupil, whatever, and suddenly you've got the name Scarlets bestowed on you, it doesn't matter if it's got West or East attached in the end. All of a sudden, you're given a false impression that you're on a pathway to regional rugby. Okay, and I think it's possible to have a pathway without doing that. And for me now, the prestige of playing for Pembrokeshire at club level when you're a youngster is totally gone, because they call it Scarlets West. It's almost seen as like a trial to bigger and better things, and I don't think it should be like that. And I think the message should be, right, that every pupil interested in rugby, you want to impress for your school. If you impress for in school, you get the honour of playing for Pembrokeshire. Once you're in the Pembrokeshire setup, you've got to work harder again, and then you maybe got the honour going on to higher level and playing for sides that are called Scarlets and so on. And this is where I think the drop-off and young players feeling knocked back, what Fintan has just spoken about, is so relevant, because you're putting these kids into a setup, you're calling it Scarlets West, all right? They're wearing a shirt that's got a prestigious name attached to it. You know what it's like at that age. You can't always keep your expectations in check. They think they're on a pathway to play professional rugby. They're seeing senior Scarlets players on television every week or going on to play for Wales and so on. And then all of a sudden, they're cut out from it, and it's a major kick in the teeth. And I think we could really avoid that, right, by scrapping that name, going back to calling it Pembrokeshire, and then these kids, if they don't get selected for the eventual Scarlet squad, at least they're going back to their clubs and being able to think, I've had an experience of representing my county, which is still a very honourable thing to do and should be an honour for anyone growing up. I don't know if I'm going down the wrong path and looking too much into it here, but I'll start with you, Tommy. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I've never really thought about it.
Sorry, this isn't denouncing your achievement or any other player in any way.
No, I know.
15, 16, especially when you're from St David's, to be county or Pembrokeshire setup is a good achievement, and it should be recognised. But I hope you get where I'm coming from here.
Yeah, I know. And what I'm thinking about now is, when you were just talking there, is that actually it is, as you say, just a trial period. Because I remember at the end of when they were picking the team for the Scarlets under 16s, they only had a few games at the end of the season. There was only three or four games, and that was with the complete squad of West and East. And then from there, I think they started picking for under 18s for next season and the season after that. But that is a good point about how it is just a trial period, and then if you don't get through, you kind of think in a way you've failed in a way. And I did kind of think that way. So it's interesting you brought that up in a way.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with what you're saying 100% there, Fraser, and it's, that's one of the things I thought I could see as it was all sort of unfolding, involved in it. But, the interesting thing is you never really asked the youngsters what they thought about. So, it's interesting to see, what your view is, Tommy, and what you were thinking at the time, or, how you view it now. That's the point of having you here, really, is getting that, different generation sort of view on it, really.
Yeah. Well, at the time, I think I really enjoyed it. The first thing we went to Hartbury College. They've got state-of-the-art pitches, state-of-the-art facilities. So going there was exciting, and the boys are having a great time. But looking back on it, it was quite a cutthroat thing for a 16-year-old to be in, and that's not anything on the coaches. That's just the way it's set up. That's just the way the pathways set up. But then also, I would argue with the Scarlet senior team, they get a lot of players through their pathway, so it must be in some way successful. And maybe that's why it's set up for the benefit of the club and not so much the benefit of the players that don't quite make it. So, as I say, at the time, it was pretty cutthroat, but maybe that is because it benefits the club more and it makes it more competitive.
I mean, one thing I was told at the time, is not to you've got those boys who are getting to the Scala setup. Really, you don't have to, or you shouldn't have to motivate them too much and look after them and spend all your time when you're coaching a club like St David's or any of the smaller clubs, that to put all your eggs in the basket of, oh, look at these players, because they're in the setup, they're in the pathway. If they're good enough and they want it enough, they'll make it. Where you should be putting your time and effort is all the other boys who are still at the club, to make sure that they go on to play for St David's. You know, I think sometimes as the coaches, and a few of us, you know, you get involved in thinking you've got a star in your side, and you put all your emphasis on that person, that player, whereas in reality, they're not going to play for your club. What you need to be looking at is all the other players around them, and developing those, and developing ethos within that team, that they go through and play youth rugby and play senior rugby for your club. Which, if that's the benchmark, I think the vast majority of us haven't done very, very good, really, because the drop off is so high, like, you know. But you know, and that's the thing. You know, they used to always sort of say, like, you know, you've got to want to play for St David's, you've got to want to play for St David's, but you know, it's a difficult one. You know, there's no magic answer to this.
Yeah, I think on that as well, I think there's so much emphasis on becoming such a successful rugby player that no one wants to go back to their old ways, so they go for a more competitive, you know, club or division or league, instead of bringing that league up to what they want to be. Not the league, sorry, to bring the club up to the league they want it to be in. Instead of that, they just go straight to it, and that's how it works, and that's maybe why people dropped off, because they don't want to. They don't want to be involved with that, and they just want to get to the top or stop playing.
Mm. Just on another note, there's something we touched on a bit earlier. Now, if you were up in Cardiff and you'd come home for the weekend, and St David's had a game, and you were there and you were put on the bench, what would you think of that? If you know, would you expect to come back and to be playing? I know you'd want to play, because everyone wants to play when you're young, but would you be annoyed or think, well, I'm not coming back again, or, you know, or do you understand that, well, you know, you might be on the bench and you might think, well, I'm better than, you know, half that pack that are playing, or you know, that's how you feel, but you're not starting. What's your views on that?
It doesn't make a difference to me. I'm of a different opinion to many people of my age. Is that, you know, obviously people want to be playing, but I get my rugby in uni. I play Wednesdays, so coming back and supporting the club and playing on the bench, it makes no difference. So I think maybe people are a bit too self-centered in that sense. Obviously, if they want to play their local club, because people that live around here still, when they're not, you know, some people who don't go to university or whatever, you know, they still only have that Saturday to play, and playing on the bench is not ideal. But then you go training. That's the whole point. It's the whole point of training. You improve. So for me, it doesn't really make a difference to me. No, I get my rugby up in university, whatever standard that is. But supporting the local club and all that is more important, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Fair play.
Yeah.
I think a lot depends on the circumstances as well, doesn't it? I think if you're telling someone who's away in university, if there's coaches actively dragging them home, telling them they need in the squad, and then not playing them, that's maybe where more problems come in, as opposed to someone like Tommy who's got a good attitude, listening, let's say, who's already playing in the week anyway, and is maybe voluntarily coming home to help out, if that makes sense, so to speak.
There's boys I know in Cardiff Uni. I'll name a name. Robbie Jones. He comes back every Saturday and he plays for Fishguard. And he's.
I wouldn't have known he was Cardiff Uni. He was in Cardiff Uni.
Yeah, he's doing pharmaceutical or something like that. But he comes back every Saturday.
Present, you know.
Yeah, and he's a really good player, and you know, he's enjoying it. So I don't see why anyone else couldn't come back and play for the club. There's boys who in my house, in my uni house, they go back. He goes back to Marlborough, plays for his team, and then comes home. You know, so it's not like a weird thing. But I get the whole thing about the bench and being annoyed and not playing. So why should I go back? But I don't think it's too much of a problem, especially in the people my age.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if you were to make a commitment and say, look, I'll come back every weekend and I'll play, you know, I mean, you'd expect to be in the starting team then, or you know, to be playing if you were going to make that commitment. But it's when you know, you might have a free weekend, there's nothing happening up in Cardiff, and you might think, oh, I'll come back. You know, that's when, you know, we have got people who feel that, you know, I'm not doing that again, so I'm not sitting on the bench. I'm better than those playing. When you've got to realise that, you know, it's a bit different, and that there's a team, and you've got to satisfy everyone and not just pick the best players available, which goes back to what we were saying before, how sometimes we've made mistakes in that, you know, in that point, you know, and well, you'd rather have 15 boys turn out every week than 13 or 14 on most weeks, because you've let boys down, like, you know, and drop those who are playing every week. But yeah, I mean, you could go on and on for that. But so do you see, you know, what's your sort of view now with uni? So what, you know, when you've come to finish uni, you've got another year left, haven't you?
Yeah, I'll probably do 2 because I'll do a master's. Yeah, probably, because I've been told that without a master's it's pretty useless. So,
Yeah.
no, hello, we've got a guest.
Yeah.
Second guest of the day.
She makes a weekly appearance, mate.
Yeah, but we got an even younger guest now, so we've got a different viewpoint.
So if you look at obviously, you know, two more years in uni, and the masters, where will you be looking at living after that? Have you got any plans for where you'd, you know, you know?
There's it's quite competitive at the moment, so trying to putting your eggs in all in one basket is not a good idea. So you've got to apply for all these different there's post-grad schemes, which are, you know, pretty much jobs for graduate students, and I'd hopefully aim to do that in a big city. I do want to move away for a bit and do something, you know, maybe in Cardiff or in London, or London's quite a big stretch, but maybe something in Cardiff. I've already done a shadow day with the BBC Sport Wales in Cardiff. That was a really good experience. But hopefully just doing stuff like that, even if it's not, you know, well paid, or even like an internship whilst I have a job, stuff like that, just to get experience. Because once you have that experience, you kind of on a pedestal type thing.
So you've
got the right idea there.
Yeah. So, you know, you are going to, obviously, you'll go where the work is. You won't just think, all right, I'm going to move back home and I'll try and find something in Pembrokeshire. You're going to go where the work is to further your career, the path you want to take. I mean, and that's another thing, isn't it? The old saying of the brain drain, isn't it? You know, that we lose these players because, you know, they go away to work, and then will we ever see them again? Like, you know, you may be late 20s, early 30s when you decide to move back, and you know, that's, you know, it's sort of a pattern that people sort of follow, maybe even older than that. But if once you finish then and you go and look, just say if you went up to London to work, or Bristol or something like that, would you, in your mindset, would you go and look for a local rugby club and become part of that? Or would you just, you know, is that, would that be part of you? Or would you just sort of think, well, I'll, you know, I've done it now, I'm just going to concentrate on my career and...
I'd have to keep playing. I definitely have to keep playing. I might even look at, see, round here, I was also looking at, you know, trying to play basketball. I've always had a keen eye for basketball. I've always enjoyed it, watching it, playing it. But there's no real teams around here. Something like that. I might even look to play a different sport and then keep my affiliation with St David's RFC. But yes, I've never really thought about that. I could play for a local club, say one in Bristol or one in London. There's lots of good clubs. My brother, he lived here. He moved away to Chelmsford, and he plays for Chelmsford, and they just won the league, and they've been promoted. You know, so you can still have a good rugby experience, you know, playing where you're living now. You don't have to kind of stick with the old club. I think having a new mindset about it is a good thing in some ways.
I see Scott.
Circumstances take you elsewhere, then it doesn't matter what level it is, to experience a different rugby environment and culture. I think should benefit any youngster. I think even if you're talking between Wales and England, and you're talking about your brother Scott there, I'm sure Scott is having a totally different environment to what he's used to in Wales, for better or worse. I don't know what exact level he's playing at, but I think it certainly helps, and I wish it's something I'd done more of when I was younger. It certainly helps pick up different experiences while you're younger from different rugby cultures, and then to bring them back, and you don't realise it at the time, but when you're old, you look back and you do realise that you've learned a lot of good things from different places then.
Yeah, I mean, he's played for St David's and Narberth round here in the local area, but you go into a big club like one in Essex and Chelmsford, they got 4 or 5 teams. It's completely different. It's a completely different like setup, and you do. I guess you learn a lot. I haven't really asked him, but yeah, you do. You must learn a lot, and based on your rugby, and then you can take that into, say, if you move back, say as Finton said, if you move back, then you can help aid the boys with that as well.
But he's I think he won an award this year. He's sort of supporters player of the year, I think, something like that.
He did. He did.
A very good player. But so I mean, that was another question I was going to ask you about other sports. But I've lived in lots of different places, and I've always played rugby for the local rugby club wherever I've been. And whether that's sort of just socially, which you turn up when you can because you're working up there and you've got other commitments. Such a benefit, it really is, and it's a good way of meeting people. But I was going to ask you about, because another thing they say, with rugby and the drop-off numbers, is that there's so much other options around. When we've talked about people going to football, people going into triathlons and people going into individual sports or whatever it might be. But obviously you're saying you're thinking of basketball, and now you're up in Cardiff. You probably could play basketball, Have you been watching?
Yeah.
Have you been watching the Michael Jordan documentary? Have you watched that?
I've seen it all over my social media. That's all people are going on about at the moment. It must be good. I'll probably be watching it, soon. But it's all people are on about. It must be class.
He reminds me of an 8-year-old Tommy.
Didn't like losing.
No.
Psychopath.
Oh yeah, and he gave his teammates hell,
Oh God!
I tell you what, it's a fantastic watch, but it's maybe not the best if you're trying to promote sport for all and results that don't matter. Most kids, aren't they? I was thinking back to the chat with Ryan Jones last week, and it's one of the greatest of all time, completely contradicting everything he's saying over on Netflix.
Yeah, he was a horrible man. He didn't. One of his players, Horace Grant, he didn't feed him, did he? If they lost or if he had a bad game, he wouldn't allow him to have food. That's I don't know if that's a winning mindset, but yeah. Strange.
Well, it's like it's St David's. They save loads of money if they didn't give us chips after the match,
Yeah. You'd have a problem if you didn't feed people after they lost. You would have a big problem. Malnutrition.
So you'd fancy maybe having the crack at basketball, is it?
Yeah, in first year I played every Sunday. It was Taliban Sports Centre, and I just played in a casual league, and it was good fun. Obviously, I wouldn't in university. I wouldn't change rugby. The rugby social side is just brilliant, and it's one of the best things I've done. But after uni, I'd be open to doing something like that. 100%, yeah. I
played basketball in uni. Well, obviously played in the rugby team, and then. All the rugby boys got a basketball side together. It was on a different, I can't remember what day it was on now, but it was on a different day, maybe even a Sunday morning or something. And we played in the basketball league. It's quite funny, actually. Yeah.
It is good fun. It's just one of those sports where you can have a bit of a muck around, but also enjoy it as well, playing with mates. It's good fun.
And I think that's the underlying thing, isn't it? That rugby gives you, or any sport, is that you got to find your level, and if you want to be super competitive and a Michael Jordan of the world, and and just be the best you can be, and sacrifice everything else, that's one way of going. But what it offers for 99% of people is a social aspect, and something that helps you integrate with a new community when you go there, or keeps you active, keeps you healthy, gives you a little bit of a competitive edge, gives you a reason to keep healthy and train. You know, and for most of us, that's where it is. And I think that's where you go back to the kids stuff and the Scarlet West and all that sort of thing. Is perhaps, you know, we need to be sort of promoting that more as youngsters, rather than, you know, it's a be all and end all, and this is the tree that you've got to get to the top of, like, you know.
Yeah, I was going to say, you can either confirm or deny this, but I imagine back in the day, it wasn't about that. It was if you made, you know, if you played a good level, you know, fair play, but your prerogative is to play for your local club. And I imagine, was that the case back when you played?
I think so, yeah. But I say people did move to other clubs, you know, and it would cause a lot more problem then. You know, people would move to other clubs, and when they came down to playing St David's, you know, they would be stamped on, like, or there'd be fights. You know, it wasn't taken well, but it did happen.
More. Okay.
Go on.
No, I just got to say, Finton's point then, I think certainly that colloquial feel to local rugby has gone now compared to what it was then. You've just mentioned that if you left St David's for Fishguard, for example, and you came back on Boxing Day, you know, in the first ruck, you knew where Jack Dudley's studs, what head they were aiming at, you know. You hear tales about that, and you know, I speak to people from Neyland who's had struggle for numbers this year, and they now have young boys who will just slip over and play for Milford because they're in a higher league and they perceive it's a higher standard. Now, you go back 20, 30 years ago, you know, and crossing the divide between Neyland and Milford was, in their eyes, you know, that was going from Barcelona to Madrid, Man United to Man City. You know, it just wasn't done. And if it was done, your social status took a heck of a battering, and your body took a heck of a battering the next time those two played in the derby. I don't think it's like that anymore. I've got to the point now where boys are moving about so freely, sometimes for legitimate reasons. Let's not look beyond that. But people are switching clubs so freely that it's just accepted now.
I mean, you went to...
Plus, there's less foul play in the game these days, so you get retribution. But
yeah. I mean, I didn't want to name Jack, but yeah, I've been there several times and seen him stamp on people, like, you know, and try and say it was an accident, but it always seems to be the person who had left St David's for another club, like, you know. So, you know, take that whichever way you want.
Coincidence. Yeah, coincidence.
But, you know, I think it is, you know, times have changed, and you know, you've got to look at the social side of things. You know, it's a lot more expensive to drink than it was back in those days as well. You know, going out is it costs a lot of money, like, you know. So, you know, you haven't got that as well. People have got other commitments. I do remember, I think it was boys probably about 5-6 years older than you, and you know, they'd come into the first team, and then after the game they disappeared, and you know, you thought, and I saw them in CKs. You know, I think I was coaching or something, and I hadn't gone out, and I saw them in CKs, and they were saying that they don't really drink. And then that evening I was down in White Sands. They were down on White Sands after playing a game, having a game of touch rugby on the beach, and just lying around. I was thinking, you know, it's a totally different environment, like, you know.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just, you know, that's you know, some of them haven't got the same, you know, sort of social appetite for it, or, you know, I mean, I know you like a bit of a social side of it, do you, Tommy? You know, you're old school.
I do. I am. Yeah, I'm a big fan of the social side. Yeah, I think that's. Ask Harvey; he'll know. Yeah.
I think there is something in that, though. I think if you can get amongst youngsters a fun social side back to it post games, and it doesn't. I'm not talking about pressure to drink dirty pints and that sort of thing, you know. But just in terms of some kind of gathering, that would help. I mean, okay, I may be being a bit unfair there, Joe. Singling out Jack, obviously, you know, that's more a reflection of his era. But the one thing you would say is that whatever went on the field, you know, with Jack, he was always leading it, the camaraderie with both sides off the field in the clubhouse afterwards, you know. So, and that's a side that has noticeably dropped off as well. And I remember speaking to Phil Steele, and he thought that was the big element we had to get back, to get youngsters back involved in rugby. Now, I don't know how you do it, I don't think it's quite as simple as just clicking your fingers and say, let's get the social side back. But if there could be some kind of interactive element after games, even if it doesn't centre around alcohol, I think that would help. Do you get that impression from me?
Well, one thing I'd say, the difference between go on.
Are there many of your age group, you think, who would be involved if they thought there was more fun attached to it after games or even after training?
Thing is, for me, that's tough to say because I don't know how much fun they have when they're playing or whatever. They may play, but they may not have as much fun as me or the next person.
Yeah.
In terms of after the game, I mean, there's obviously drinks after a first team game. There's drinks and we have games and everything. There's great fun. A good example is Langham v St David's down in St David's. Yeah. I wasn't there, but it looked brilliant and it looked incredible and just really good fun. But what I was going to say was the difference between, again, going back to uni, the difference between uni and here is that social side of uni, pretty much everyone goes to social. It is a massive part of playing the rugby there because straight after the game, you all get your blue shirt and your tie on and you go to the social and you have a great time. Whereas with the rugby club, some people are in there with their tie on and they're sitting down playing games. And then some people go back and they sit in their house and they play video games or whatever. So it's just a different culture. I think it's all about culture. It's just a different culture. And maybe to change that, you need people, obviously we've got Jack Dudley, but you need some people, to lead it and to get it going back again. And I think Langham and St David's do a great job. But it's strange.
Yeah, I do know on that, my son saying to me, Harvey saying when he was first playing in the under-18s, when he was 18 and he'd first gone to the seniors and they were losing quite a bit. And he said, look, I don't really mind the losing as such, not that, you want to go out there to lose. He said, but the fact is, just after the games, there's no social, there's nothing happening and you're just coming back. And he said that was disheartening him. And, he's thinking then, I think if there'd have been an option of his mates were at maybe a football club or something and they were all having a good laugh and good social, you probably would have lost them,
Yeah.
So that social is an important part of keeping people. And keeping
I think it's
clubs over.
I think it's definitely changing. They got Kun Boy who's doing all the socials now and he's getting all the camaraderie back, I think. But it's going to be a task, I think.
Kun Boy's on Strava now. He's actually doing some running.
I know. I'm surprised. He's putting in a good shift. He's obviously getting ready to start at 9 next year.
It's amazing the reverse effect this lockdown has had. People that are cropping up who've joined Strava. I mean, yeah. I haven't seen any activities from some of them yet, but certainly it's turned a few to it.
I have. I've seen quite a few people who've joined it. So, what sort of training are you doing there, Tommy, to keep yourself? Are you actually training and keep yourself fit and active?
Yeah, I am doing some. Yeah, not as much as I should be, and me and the parents are drinking a bit too much. But there we are. It's part and parcel of lockdown. But at the start, I was doing some running, some cycling. And I have fallen off doing that. And I think it's mostly because of my uni work. I've been doing this maybe 10 hours a day just to get it good. But I'm still doing press-ups, sit-ups, all that body weight workout stuff. I'm still doing that just to keep my body weight up. Because when I broke my collarbone, I was in a sling and I lost about a stone. And now I'm back up to about 15.7. So just doing that stuff just to keep me going, ready for next season is going to be good, pretty much. But yeah, I'm not doing as much training as I should be.
I mean, and that's going back there, obviously drinking a bit too much with your parents, I mean, another thing I do feel for your generation is, when you're home from uni, your summers, this is your time for going out and exploring the county and having a good time, really, isn't it? With your mates before really, you have to go and find an internship or work, and people finish their college courses, or people start getting, jobs that, means you haven't got the whole summer off. And it's a sort of a once in a chance lifetime, really, isn't it? I mean, you get a couple of years window of doing it, and it looks like, you may lose one of those windows. Does that bother you now? Do you think of that? Are you, or?
Yeah, definitely. I've kept saying to Mum just about all the things I'm missing out. She said, "Oh, you're not missing out because it's not happening for everyone." And I'm kind of like, well, yeah, that's the point. Part of the thing at this age and is going around with your mates from home and then going out after work, because during the summer, obviously, you work, get your money up for next year. But yeah, missing that socialization and just being with your mates it has been tough. I won't beat around the bush. It has been really tough. But I'm kind of used to it now. It's strange how I've kind of climatized to this lockdown and just staying in the house. I haven't left the house properly for a good month now, and it's not a good thing. You should be going to see your mates and socializing, but no, it is tough. I won't lie.
Yeah. And on the financial side of things, uni costs a lot of money these days, and you're obviously not going to be working. What's going to happen next year when you go back to uni? Financially, because I'd imagine the money you earn over the summer helps you through the winter.
Yeah, well, it's a strange one. So first of all, back on the tuition bit, I've applied for compensation. There's a process you can do because of the industrial action, and then of course this as well, because I'm missing out on thousands of pounds of lectures and whatnot. The second part is I've had my student loan, but because I'm not doing anything, I'm not spending it. So not working in summer is not going to be that much of a detriment because I'm just going to have my student loan from this term. So it's not going to be that much of an issue, actually. What I would be doing in the summer if I was working is paying off my overdraft, But now I'm not going to have an overdraft because I haven't got anything to spend on.
And moving forward, Tommy. Sorry, moving forward from uni now, before we wrap things up, you've mentioned a bit about your aspirations there. Obviously, you're big into your sport. Is it sports journalism? Is that primarily what you do want to go into? Or are you looking a lot broader than that?
No, definitely. That's 100% what I want to go into is sport journalism. Yeah, at the start, it's not realistic to say, in my opinion, and based on what I've heard, it's not realistic to say I'm going to go straight into sports journalism. You might have to go into something like PR, or you might have to do some other type of journalism. That is the reality of it. However, I don't mind that. That's not going to be too much of an issue for me. It's just what I want to do when I'm in my prime, so to speak, is do the sports. Yeah, the sports journalism. Yeah.
And what are they? What they're gearing you towards now at your age in sports journalism? Obviously, the game's changing all the time. So much of it is now internet-based. So much of it is social media based. Are you encouraged to get out there off your own back and watch games and so on, or is that something you're maybe doing yourself on the side? Because I know, for example, you did it with me and you can work experiences. Is that something you're very much a string you're adding to your own bow, so to speak?
I think when it comes to sport on my course, there's no sport journalism.
Right.
The first thing that I'm going to be able to do is next year, the first term, I've got one module and it's called Sport and Media. The rest of the course is more orientated about media law and all that,
sure.
The theory behind it. So I'm looking forward to do that module, obviously. But everything I've done in terms of sport, with yourself, was based on what I wanted to do. And as you say, adding a string to my own bow. So, doing that stuff with you was brilliant. It really gave me a good insight and also a portfolio to work off of. But yeah, most of my course is not based around sport at all. You could do your essays and stuff like that on sport, maybe, if it's relevant, but most of it isn't relevant. So it's basically off my own accord. Yeah.
Sure.
So there we go. All right. We're going to have to round this up now. You've probably got to go back to bed saying you work 10 hours a day. Like,
yeah, at the moment I am. It's pretty full on. So I'll probably get straight to it after this.
Oh, yeah. All right.
Yeah.
It was good to catch up here. I'm not just hearing you bellowing over Harvey's system, like, you know, when you had a few beers on a Zoom party.
It's good for me and Finn to get a younger perspective as well, to be fair, Finn.
It is,
on a serious note, you know. It is.
No, it is. That's the thing, is just get it. I mean, it's just so easy just to say, oh, well, this is, you know, I mean, clubs and organisations, everything on about how can we get more youth doing things? How can we do this? How can we do that? Very few of them actually listened to younger people and listen to the players. You know, you have older people who've been there and done it and say, well, this is how we did in our day. This is how we did in our day. But you've got to realise times change, and you have got to really speak to the people who are in the midst of it now to try and improve things, haven't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, our day was still better though, but I do.
Oh, yeah. we were a far better side. Like you wouldn't have got in the St. David's side. Like,
fair enough. You must have been up there then.
One thing you learned from living locally is you would never have got in the St. David's side 10 years ago. Whoever.
Yeah. It doesn't matter when that was. It doesn't matter in 10 years' time. You know, you would have got in at 10 years ago. It doesn't matter. Right.
I'll let you crack on then, Finn.
I'm going to finish off now with the lockdown lowdown. Right. I'm just going to ask you questions, and you've just got to answer yes or no. Well, not yes or no. Pick one or the other. Right. So, if you were stuck in lockdown now for another 3 weeks and you had to give up social media or TV, which one would it be?
TV by far. Social media is way more entertaining.
You're the first person to say that.
Do you know what? There's the generational.
There we go. There we go.
All the oldies we've had on have all gone for they'd give up social media and stick with TV. So I knew that was happening. Right. So Fishguard Youth or St. David's under 16s? Best time you had?
Oh, best time I had. St. David's under 16s. Yeah. I've got to say that because my dad's out there and he'd run in and... No, I'm being serious. St. David's under 16s was one of the best times I've had in rugby.
So, as a winger, JJ or Fraser?
I've never seen JJ play, so I'm going to have to go Fraser.
Yeah. You don't have to see JJ play. You've got the right answer there. Don't worry.
Fair enough. We'll see what he says.
Yeah. And then what we've got then, right? As a obviously in this media world, best rugby analysis and reporter, Fraser or Sean Holly?
Ooh, that's a toughie, that one. I've only seen Fraser's work. I've seen it firsthand. So again, I'm gonna have to go Fraser. You know, I haven't seen the behind the scenes with Sean Holly. So
again, you don't need to, Tommy. You don't need to.
Got the right answer. Yeah.
Yeah. Put that one down, Finn.
Yeah, I've got that one down there. And then
Italian these, are you?
Yeah, we're gonna go now. Right. Last question. Best club chairman, Colin Reynolds or Gareth Price?
Gareth Price, hands down. Hands down. Not even close.
Yeah.
Let's hope he doesn't watch this.
No, I doubt it. Like, yeah, he's one of the ones who his generation would have stuck with the telly and social media.
Yeah. He doesn't even know this exists.
He'd be too busy sorting his washing line out, like, you know.
Yeah.
That's what's on social media.
Yeah, he's doing his logs now. He's enjoying the gardening. But yeah.
I think he's going to log us off here, chaps.
All right.
Yeah.
Hey, we'll catch you later. All right.
Hey.